doing okay.
PJ's more Game Gumbo. I've got my guest here, Dan Thurot from Space-Biff. We're talking spicy hot games, and one of the ones I was excited that you put on the show notes was a game that I got to play from Rio Grande Games. It seems like maybe the return of Rio to the big Euros that we grew up when we got into the hobby, and that's Beyond the Sun. Dan, you've played this, right?
I have played this like 6 times.
Give us the elevator pitch. What is Beyond the Sun?
Oh man, that's a good question. To me, Beyond the Sun is a tech tree. So the game, it's about exploring space and colonizing planets, but its approach, lots of these games have technology in them, but what this one is it's built around, and there it is right there on the picture. It's built around a technology tree. So as you play, you research technologies, and those technologies unlock actions that you can take and give you bonuses, and they let you research more technologies. And one thing I'm really liking about it, I don't know if this is the case for you, BJ. So you've played it?
Yes, I played it twice.
You've played it twice. So one of the things I love about it is you really don't research everything. I think the most
especially if you're like me, you don't research everything.
Yeah.
Or you don't get a chance to.
Yeah, I love that. I've reached the 4th level, I think, most games, but I've never researched more than one level 4 tech, and they can really transform how the game feels. So I'm really digging it. I wasn't sure how I would feel about it. It has a lot of negative space. Maybe the graphic design isn't super exciting, but it's very crisp.
This board right here, it's just so plain, though. Dang,
it's very
Dan,
light.
it's just so plain. And I will tell you, when we got our copy in, the front cover was like, so exciting. You're going beyond the sun. You're going to explore. Yeah. And then we put the board on the table, and we took the player boards, and we're like, oh no, is this going to be one of these spreadsheet Phil Eklund type games? But Dan, it didn't turn out to be that at all. This is yes, it's Euro Euro game or Euro the tech game, as you said, tech tree game. But it is so exciting, and maybe it's, even though it's a small part of the game. See if I can find it. This part, I love the actual space exploration, especially when we got to play it with 3 players. It was even better. We got Jay Bell to come in, and me, Jay, and Bradley played, and it played so much different at 3 than it did at 2. That I just can't wait for this pandemic to be over so I can get 4 people around the table again.
Oh yeah.
Crowding around this board. In this configuration, we were on different corners of a giant 8-foot by 12-foot table. So we're pretty far apart. I think this game is 4 people crouched around a board, moving pieces against each other, watching what Dan's doing as he goes up the tech tree, because I need to get some of those techs myself, right?
Yeah. We have been fortunate. We have a housemate, so we've been able to play it with 4. And the only downside is it's a bit of a table hog. So this is one of those games that we have had people standing up, and you put your hands on the table and really lean over it, just so that you can see all of the cool stuff that everybody else is doing. Because there's so much going on. Sometimes somebody will research something, and you can tell they're excited about it. They're jumping all over the place, and then you don't know why, because the card is so far away.
I got so close in both games to getting that 4th tech tree. I feel like if I had gotten the fourth level, I would have felt like I won, even if I didn't win, because it just feels so satisfying to get there. But I will say this, you kind of hinted at something earlier. Although the board itself is nothing spectacular, the player boards are a little blah. The crispness of the graphic design, I heard somebody complain about the graphic design. I have 0 complaints about the graphic design. In other words, iconography, Dan, we picked up the iconography in seconds.
Yeah, it's very intuitive. That's one of the things I like about it. I actually think that this is a good example of a board game where its lack of too much, it's a selling point, right? You do not want this to be too cluttered. I love being able to look across the table, and even though everything is miniature, you can pretty much tell what things will do right when you look at them. You don't have to sit there and evaluate them. You don't have to look past artwork. I think this. I don't want more art on this one.
Steve, does this interest you a little bit, Beyond the Sun?
It's interesting hearing you talk about its uncluttered nature being a feature rather than a bug. And it sounds like a lot of folks are might be criticizing it for its aesthetics, but you're saying the not getting in the way lets mechanics really come through.
It's kind of refreshing, right, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, so take this game and just the amount of visual information that it wants you to process, and now put a watermark of technology on every card. How are you going to read this game, especially with how much space it takes up? That tech tree is huge. So I think you showed like the little planet board where you explore, and the player board. Those are already full size things. The board itself is like 3 times bigger.
Steve, this is a regular board game size board, and the main, that's not the main board. That's the small board.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah, that's a sideboard.
Yeah, that's just the sideboard. I do love that explorer mechanic, and I didn't realize how much deeper you get into the exploration when you play 3 versus 2. The two-sided board is kind of limited. It's this is really nice. I'll tell you, I'm a huge fan. In fact, if you guys don't mind, I'd like to stop the show and maybe the 3 of us just find it on TTS somewhere and just play. Because this is one of those games, if I were doing the Omni game, Steve, you could name Beyond the Sun, and you'd guess it on the first try.
Do these different modular parts, exploration, tech, do they come together as a whole? How do they, or I'm seeing a lot of different boards, a lot of different places. Does it unify?
Dan?
It does a lot better than I was expecting when I first broke it out. So, I mean, so the player board right there that BJ has up, you can see you've got tracks that you're going to be spending a lot of time making the sideboard. You're going to be spending a lot of time trying to put down outposts and colonies specifically to put out those little plants and those little gears, because those are going to let you produce the resources and workers you need to continue exploring. So things are moving between the 3 boards. It feels very alive in that respect. Your little workers, so they're dice. You never roll them, as far as I know. I think there's maybe one event that you roll them.
I did roll, and I was very excited. I got this event card that you had to roll it. You had to roll a dice, and whatever came out, that's what your spaceship was. So that was kind of exciting.
So it's cool because those are, them being dice is actually super efficient because you don't need a bunch of tokens. So one side is supply, one side is your worker, and then it becomes ships of different strengths. So what you do is, you take it off your board when it's a supply and it becomes a worker. Then you can put your worker out here to work on something to become a tech, or flip it over. It becomes a ship of a different strength and flies around. So they do matter, that it's a representation of kind of your total manpower, your investment. And yeah, I think it fits together surprisingly well.
Interesting.
It's our first multi-use dice. It's not the first, of course. Games like Coimbra have done it before, but it's multi-use dice in that there's a couple of the really juicy decisions where I was down to 1 dice in my little thing, and I had to decide, am I sending it this way, sending it that way? Because you knew then you had to bring more dice off your player board to get, I forget what the term is called when you're trying to get them ready. I just love it. It's a combination of trying to build out on that tech tree that I'm showing, trying to explore, or determining how much you want to explore, because that's one way of scoring points, or determining how much you want to build your engine off your player board. You could play this, I think, as just a straight engine builder. Sit back, build up that engine, and then, hope that you have enough turns to attack the tech tree or attack the space board. But I think the better strategy would be doing a little bit of all of it at the same time, which Steve is a tough juggle to do.
To synergize that's got to be difficult.
Yeah. The mark of a good gamer when you can juggle all those things. So the 2 games that we played with a total of 5 players, the 2 and the 3, I've seen multiple strategies being performed, from my terrible ones all the way to Bradley's amazing ones. So Dan, are you seeing the same thing, that there doesn't seem to be one way of playing the game? You can kind of do what you want in this game?
I would agree. And some of that is that it makes a decision that was not uncommon in older Euro games, but has sort of fell out of favor, which is just luck. So what happens is when you research, you have a little choice where
Dan, you're breaking Joel Lewis.
I'm sorry,
Come
Joel.
on, man.
I'm sorry, Joel. This game stinks. It's for losers. Only dweebs play Beyond the Sun.
Terrible graphic. Terrible gameplay, Joel.
Pathetic weaklings.
Stay away, Joel.
But one of the things I do like is that when you research a tech, you actually draw. And there's some direction to that. It's not entirely random. Like you might be looking for a specific type of technology, but you draw it at random. So there's this sense of discovery, which, you know, in this era where we play Civ games like Sid Meier's Civilization might seem counterintuitive, but that's really the way that scientific inquiry functions, isn't it? You accidentally discover penicillin. You don't go in expecting to, you know, get rid of bacteria. That's just something that it's weird. It's wild. That's how inquiry, or you invent Viagra on accident. You know, there's all sorts of things that we didn't go in anticipating. And I love that it does that. So there is some discovery, and it does make every game feel different. We've had games that were just all out space warfare. And then we've had games where the colonizing portion of the game was really a sideshow, where it didn't matter all that much.